Today we are taking a 50-pound bag of potatoes that we got and turning them into instant mashed potatoes in our freeze dryer. Our potato harvest wasn't very good this year, but luckily enough there was a farm down the street and they were selling 50-pound bags for $15, and that was too good of an opportunity to pass up. What I have sitting right here in front of me, this is just a big giant pot of mashed potatoes. We didn't do anything crazy or special to these. All we did is we took our potatoes, we cut them up, we put them into a giant pot and started to boil them. Now when we made these mashed potatoes, we left all the skins on because nobody over the age of 12 actually likes mashed potatoes without the skins. After they're completely cooked, we drained all the water out and just mashed all the potatoes together. We didn't add any kind of milk or butter or seasoning or anything like that. What we want here is we just want a really nice instant mashed potato that we're going to be adding all of our milk and all of our butter and all of our seasonings when we rehydrate it. With the Harvest Right trays, all we're doing is we're taking one of these little things of parchment paper. I bought these on Amazon and the parchment paper is already cut to the medium freeze dryer tray size. If you're interested in these, I'll leave a link in the description below. But these are just extremely convenient to just take and put on your tray and not have to cut anything to size or worry about anything getting stuck to your tray. Now, when we're doing potatoes, we want to add as much as we possibly can to each of these trays. This is going to be a really long drying time, but that's okay because it's going to give us a whole ton of food when we're done. So I'm going to put a whole lot of potatoes on here and I'm going to push them down and just kind of make sure that all the little nooks and crannies are filled and we have as much potatoes as we can possibly fit on here. We don't want to go too much higher than the actual edges of the tray. We just want to go to the edges of the tray, but make sure that every little bit is completely filled up and level with those edges. It's going to look like you have a lot more than you can fit, but once you get everything spread around, it's going to surprise you how much it kind of sits down and settles down once you move everything around. So I pretty much filled the entire tray as much as I possibly could. This is a good several pounds of food sitting in here. I've got 4 more trays here to fill up, so let me go ahead and fill these trays up and then we'll come back and start the next step. All right, all 5 trays are filled up, and I forgot to mention, if you were doing this like I was and you're not using any milk or butter or anything like that, and that's all something you're gonna add when you rehydrate it, one thing you can do to kind of make sure that it all mixes well and that it all lays down flat and kind of molds down into the trays, you can add a little bit of water, and not a whole lot, just enough to really help the potatoes mix together and turn into more of a smooth consistency rather than this kind of chunky, dry consistency. These are going to be extremely bland. They're going to be kind of just boring mashed potatoes. But once we reconstitute these, we're going to add whatever we want. We can add, ranch seasoning, we can add butter, we can add milk, we can add all kinds of different things to reconstitute these. But while we're storing them, we want them to be just plain Jane mashed potatoes, nothing extra added. At this point, the trays are full, and there's 2 different things we could do right now. We can put all these in the freezer, and that's going to save us a lot of time in the freeze dryer. These potatoes are still pretty warm from when we cooked them, and if we put them in the freeze dryer now, it's going to take a good chunk of 15-20 hours just to get these down to the temperature they need to be to start freeze drying them. But what we're going to do is we're going to put these in the freezer. That's going to bring them down to the freezer temperature. So then when we do freeze dry them, it's going to take off 10-15 hours of dry time. Luckily, remember how I said we did 50 pounds of these potatoes? So this isn't the first batch. I pre-freezed another batch that we did exactly the same as this. These ones are completely frozen, ready to go. So let's go get them in the freeze dryer. The freeze dryer has pre-cooled. It's all set up, ready to go. Let's go ahead and get this thing filled up. All right. When we go through this cycle, it's going to be a lot longer than a normal cycle for us. This is a very dense food. There's probably a good 15-20 pounds of potatoes here. After the machine tells me it's done, I'm not going to trust it. I'm not going to believe it. So I'm going to make sure that I give it a good probably 10 or 20 hours of extra dry time as soon as this is done. I want to make sure that this is completely 100% bone dry. Once I push continue up here on the screen, this machine is going to do everything on its own. I don't have to touch it until it's completely done. I've already gotten into the settings, and it's automatically going to go 24 hours of extra dry time as soon as it's done drying. So the cycle is going to get done. It's just going to immediately go straight into that extra dry time. I don't have to go in and mess with that. So if you do have a freeze dryer, go into your settings and set it up like that. So that way, if you're not home when it's completed, if you are somewhere, you're at work for the day and your cycle gets completed, you don't want it to go back into the freezing mode, because the default of the machine is as soon as the cycle's done, it's going to just freeze all the food in there. So set the default of your machine to just go for 24 hours of extra dry time. It might be 20 hours, whatever the max is. It's either 20 or 24. I think it's 24 though. Now that the ones that were in the freezer are in the freeze dryer, I have my little stackers back. I should probably just buy another set of these because these things are pretty amazing. I got these on Amazon. I don't know if they're the best version out there because there's a lot of different versions out there. And if you are in the market for a freeze dryer right now, we're gonna have a link down in the description below. This is gonna be an affiliate link. It's not gonna cost you any extra money to use that link, but it will give us a small commission, and that small commission is going to help us make more videos like this one. All right, now that I got all these stacked up, I'm gonna get these in the freezer, and we're gonna come back as soon as those potatoes in there are done freeze drying. This was quite a long run. It ran for about 48 hours before the cycle was done, and that was last night at like 8 o'clock was the 48 hours. And then I just left it running overnight, and now I'm here today. It probably ran a good 55 hours to get as dry as it is now. Now I'm not gonna put this into a food processor because I don't want it to turn into a powder. I want it to be more of like a chunky mashed potatoes. That's the way that I like it. I'm gonna break it up a little bit, and I'm gonna put it in this gallon bag here, and I'm just gonna kind of beat it with a wooden spoon. Something, beat it, just beat it. All right, that's about what I wanted. So yeah, there's still some chunks in there, but it's not kind of overwhelming chunks. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna put some of this in this bowl here, and this is gonna give us some to test here in a little bit. So I'm just gonna kind of put a little handful in there because we're gonna be testing that. Also, YouTube changed a couple things. So when you hit the subscribe button or the like button, it gives you this happy little confetti dance thing. It animates it. So go down and hit either of those two buttons or both of those buttons and let me know if it does a happy little dance for you. Thank you. I think I might be able to fit one tray in one Mylar bag. Oh yeah, I'll be able to do one tray per bag. When you're storing stuff like this long term, you wanna make sure that you put an oxygen absorber in there. So I'll be throwing one of these oxygen absorbers, closing this back up so that way none of these go bad. And I'm going to seal the bag up. So I'm gonna try to get as much air as I can out, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal if you don't get it all out. The oxygen absorber is gonna get some of that out, not quite all of it, but that's okay. So line this up here and give it a nice seal. So that's one seal, but I wanna give it multiple seals just to be safe. That second one, I definitely like better than the first one. So this is what each tray is gonna give me, is one of these Mylar bags full. To reconstitute this, I'm gonna use some hot milk, maybe some hot water, haven't decided yet, some butter and some seasoning. So let's start off with just throwing some butter in there. And I'm gonna start off with the milk. I don't know for sure how much of each thing I'm gonna use, and honestly, it kind of depends on how you like your mashed potatoes. For me, I always start with less liquid and then add more as needed. You can always add more, but you can't take it away. Oh yeah, I'm gonna need a lot more. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some more milk. It's looking pretty good so far. I'm gonna give this about 5 minutes just to get some of those bigger pieces to really soak up that moisture. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. It looks like it's pretty well reconstituted. Let's give it some seasoning here. This is just Killer Hog's AP seasoning. This is just salt, pepper, garlic. I use this on pretty much everything. I don't know how well you can see this, but it's looking like some pretty good mashed potatoes. Let's see how they taste. Okay, that's good. Some of those bigger chunks could have used just a little bit more time to reconstitute, to rehydrate, but this tastes like fresh mashed potatoes. We can go ahead and count mashed potatoes as a success.